Okay, welcome to the second session of session 2.2, and we're now talking about experiences from the ground, especially from the Remodelies project. In the first session we saw very back to the ground concepts or one-stop shops. It's really concrete. However, Remodelies is on a higher abstraction level, so it is it's more overarching. Already in the first session there was an introduction of the Remodelies project by Sara. We will go a little bit more into deep, but first of all I will introduce myself. My name is Peter Opperveld, semi-retired. And I wrote the Remodelies proposal. So that's the only right that I am allowed to sit here on the table. So, Sara, please.
Thank you, Peter. I'm Sara Di Maggio. I'm coordinating Remodelies project, as you have heard also this morning, together with Peter. So today we'll go more in depth on what Remodelies has produced in terms of finding and insight from this 3.5 years project. I think I need the slide changer. No.
It's coming. It's
coming from the other
long way, but here it is.
Perfect, thanks. So this session is called Paving the Way for Future Impact, because we'll go from the relab concept, how in Remodelies we developed this model, to the rehab, a more permanent structure. Remodelies start from this fundamental idea of organizing the wealth of knowledge on renovation practices. We've heard today all the experiences from the ground across Europe, and what was missing though when we started this proposal is an organization of all this technical information from the different area, from the technical aspects, from the financial side, the demand side, the supply side. So really Remodelies recognize the need to look at how these fragmented aspects of the renovation process are can be organized in a more structured way. But despite that, doesn't mean that the outcome would have been a common solution, but we will see later how we got from the Remodelies to the actual cases. So what are these tools and services that can be scaled up across Europe? What are the methodologies that we can use to uptake renovation processes? And what are the new business models that can boost renovation? So the idea, as mentioned, is to tailor these solutions to the local context. But how can we organize this framework? So we started by looking at these main categories, cultural, social, technical, processual, and financial areas, and mapping the constraints related to these 5 areas. But we didn't do this from a top-down approach, so from, let's say, the literature or from the data already available there, but from a bottom-up approach. So really starting from the ecosystem level and getting this data from the actual experience from the pilots. The ecosystems of Remodelies are 7, are scattered across Europe, from the Netherlands to Spain to France. In Italy we have 3 different regions that we have covered, because they have all different regional contexts to deal with. Then we have Greece, Slovenia, and Bulgaria. What we did was starting by looking at the residential stock in these countries and mapping the typological presence of different type of building stock, from, for instance, terrace houses, single dwellings, the different typologies also in terms of technical facades with balconies, not balconies, and looking at the really modular concept of these solution. And what we've seen is that indeed there are very deep difference from country to country. We heard today also that in the Netherlands, for instance, the houses are, most of them are from the post-war reconstruction, so they have quite of a similar typological appearance, whether in other countries the historical context led to more variety in terms of facade and envelopes. And we mapped, in connection to all these local ecosystems, what were these constraints. And what we have seen immediately is that the most constraints happen to be on the demand side. This doesn't come with a surprise. We have heard today that indeed there is where we have the most issues with triggering renovation process. So there is where we should focus on how we can really reduce these, overcome these barriers on the demand side. But with this graph, you can see that really the most, the weight lies in the beginning of the process and onto the actual user, occupants, and final user of the buildings. We mapped the constraints through a quite, let's say, chirurgical approach by looking at really the weight for each constraint, and with this bottom-up approach by running interviews with the local ecosystem, allowing voting on the main constraints for each ecosystem. We look at what were the primary constraints and the secondary constraints per local ecosystem. And what we have seen here is that the barriers that happen to be on the demand side are 30% related to cultural and process-related constraints. So the lack of knowledge, the lack of uncertainty on the process, for instance, the uncertainty on the financial scheme. So all these barriers have the heaviest weight in our ecosystems, and this can also be found in a published paper that the Remodius partner carried out during the project, where all these barriers are quite described in details and discussed. We also look at the existing tools on EU level, because as we mentioned earlier, Remodius really started by this idea of clustering the available information. And we mapped 32 tools. Tools, we call it as general terms to indicate also protocols, methodology, specific products. And what we did was looking at the versatility of these tools to be applied on different contexts, so that you can also replicate certain solutions beyond the local context. And the ones that are the most, let's say, replicable are the tools related to engagement during the initial phases of the renovation process with the local municipality or with social housing association. These engagement tools have the highest potential for replication. Then we look at the innovation trends on the local ecosystems, and also we categorize all these trends by organizational, design, financial, and technical trends. All this information again came from the ecosystems, interviews, voting, and a set scheme to gather and collect all this information. And here, as an example, kind of list of the most interesting and most hindering like design innovation trends in the market pilots that are related to the growing use of BIM. This was one of the highest trends that we've seen in the local markets, but also, for instance, the co-design activities were becoming a trend. The use of blower test, for instance, becoming as a mandatory activity for getting building permit and so on. So we started really to dive in on these trends and link the further development, also the platform and the functionalities to this information. So this is in synthesis our approach. So engaging the local stakeholders. We have engaged 125 stakeholders across the RELAB members. Then we run interviews. We identify and categorize these needs in a workshop, webinar, and ground, let's say from the ground experience. And then we run iterative session to test the functionalities, all the solutions from remodules with them. And that led to the structure of what we call the RELAB, the local advisory boards. These local advisory boards were very active players in each country that were connecting the different elements of the customer journey phases to the tools being analyzed through remodules, the methodology, the trends that were found to be relevant in each country. So they were really the key actors in engaging the local stakeholders and starting to organize this information per pilot. But the relapse is not sufficient in itself because the relapse is related to the temporary lifespan of the project. We wanted something that could last longer than the project being funded for 3 years and a half. So wanted to go for the rehab. This entity that should be more permanent in the local context. We could call it in some instances a one-stop shop. In other instances, more technical support to specific services connected to the local network. But the idea was really to look at this rehab as the neuralgic center of boosting the renovation on local level, so with a longer lifespan than the project duration, because that is what was also the missing link within all these European projects from the past that were ending at some point, leaving a legacy that could not be uptaken. So the rehab models are making use of what we could define 3 main different models that can be found in the market activation platform or remodules, which is the virtual space with the digital app shop, where stakeholders can go through the shopping online, all the tools that are available to facilitate renovation. Then we have the one-click diagnosis, which is more a technical services to assess the performance of the buildings and gives very practical result in terms of energy reduction, energy consumption reduction needed to, for instance, meet local regulations, or also type of solutions that can be implemented in terms of insulating the walls, the roof, or changing the system. So it's quite a technical service that in some cases was very major in boosting renovation in some local pilots. In other cases was not really what the local pilot actors were looking for. And then we have the success stories map, which is more of a place to find information on the previous results on deep renovation. And with deep renovation also we mean those renovations that lead to high energy reduction levels, more than 50%. So this was really a kind of a database idea of all the previous examples. So this is a bit of an overview of where we landed. So defining business models for each rehab that were connected to the local needs. And in some cases that means licensing, for instance, the know-how to the one-stop shop on the local area. In other cases that means providing technical support to the existing hub in the regions, or in other cases like also providing customer journey engagement strategies to raise awareness. So all these models are mapped in the remodules, and we will hear later today how they came into practice in the local market. So what we can discuss as lesson learned of the project so far is still not finished, so we have a few months to still feed up these experiences, is that the need was really to tailor the solutions to the local needs, and that started from the the study on the constraints, which let emerge a variety of constraints across EU countries that were not, in some cases, comparable, were totally from different fields, and at the same time providing tools, supporting tools that are in the local language was very key to the success of the solution. So always in connection with the local context. So the initial idea of remodules that was so very ambitious to build a platform that could include all the different aspects of the renovation process that could be tackled on each country was actually in the end resulted in a fragmentation of solutions that are relevant for each context, but that can be replicable on the regional scale, for instance. And then also connecting to local network was very important. We've seen from Slovenia the connection with the EcoFund scheme, with the Valencian community, also the connection with the regional Valencian governance body. So working with the existing already robust entity in the local areas is a way to address a successful rate of renovation rather than building, for instance, parallel schemes or parallel bodies. And the one point of contact services, so where you can get the, let's say, one under the roof all solutions was also very key in many of the rehabs. And we will see that the models of the rehab are also encompassing different type of services, not only tailored on energy renovation, but also kind of side services that can accompany, for instance, seismic renovation or other necessary steps for to comply with building regulations. So in the end, the conclusion is really there is no one size fit for all, but we have to really look at the local context and work with the actors that are in this context. So that was my presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think I will give the word to Peter to look at the Slido question we have now for the audience.
Okay. Can you open the Slido? It's open. I have to check it. Yeah. Having heard the presentation of Maria Sara. Oh, sorry. Having heard the presentation of Maria Sara, we are continuing now with a presentation of the pilots that we have in Remodelis. We have 7. First of all, a spoiler from my side. Maria Sara already mentioned that you have to really look for a local approach, local circumstances, and you will see that in each pilot that is completely different from the other pilots. So this is something that we learned. In the meanwhile, we already give you 4 questions, or 3 questions and an open question in the Slido. And during the presentation, you can fill in these questions. The question is, what kind of product can the Remodelis team produce to advise on these relevant topics for the EU Commission? First one, a roadmap to the replication, guidelines to set up one-stop shop concepts within the Remodelis platform, lessons learned from the Remodelis projects, what to avoid and what to do the streamlined renovation practices, or maybe an other suggestion. So you can fill this in, and then I think we can. Oh, give me the. Just a minute. So we have 7 pilots that we will discuss. It will be short pitches, I hope, 5 minutes maximum. Bulgaria, France, Greece, Italy, the Netherlands, and Slovenia. If we have time left, we can have an open discussion. We prepared some questions. It depends a little bit on the time that is left. So if you are concise, we can also have an open discussion. Not a panel discussion, but an open discussion also with the audience. The first one is Bulgaria, and maybe I can